Summoned into the past to help avert the Calamity, Riju and her sand seal named Patricia are here and ready to fight. In Hyrule Warriors Age of Calamity, this Mount and Rider's fighting style can be extremely hard to learn, requiring players to take a different approach that plays to their strengths if they want to get the most out of them. Let's slow things down a little bit and see what this pair can do. Riju's regular attack string consists of 7 attacks. She will first have Patricia jump forwards, sweep from the right to the left, spin around while hitting enemies with her surfing shield herself, have Patricia do a stronger jump, fling Riju herself forward with a shield kick, do one more jump with Patricia before finishing with her seal appearing again to fling Riju forwards where she lands with a shield slam. After enhancing Riju with the upgrade from the post-game, this final attack will have her put on the Thunder Helm and create a lightning shield around herself, one that will shock any enemies that enter into it. Putting the Thunder Sphere aside for a moment, Riju's regular attack string is very unconventional. Warriors games are no stranger to attack strings that cause your character to move a significant amount forward, but Riju's is one of the first that I've seen that actually causes the player to slightly move to the side as well. Notice in the clip on screen right now how, by the end of it, Riju has additionally moved slightly to the right, which is just another factor stacked on top of the already erratic, disorientating movements of her most basic attack string that can make controlling her feel slightly off. When it comes to the lightning sphere effect, in theory, this is a cool little bonus that you get for finishing her regular attack string, but in practice, I've found its duration far too brief to get much use out of. It's a nice thing to have if you happen to get to it, as it does work nicely in tandem with Riju's greatest strength, her dash attacks. But even with these benefits, I've found that it simply doesn't last long enough for me to actually recommend players to seek out it intentionally. Next, let's go to her dash attacks, and Riju actually has a regular attack string that has 2 attacks, instead of the typical 1 hit. When dashing, pressing Y will have Patricia jump spinning to the front, followed by a big jump into the air that brings Riju along with it. Her strong dash attack has Riju spin around her moving sand seal, damaging anyone she runs into. These 2 attacks, although they might not seem like much at first, are actually the 2 most important pieces of Riju's playstyle, and they should be by far the most used moves whenever you play as her, in particular the strong dash attack. In order to understand why this is, I'm going to have to back up a little bit. Whenever you dash with Riju and move without interruption, such as not doing any attack for 5 seconds, Patricia the Sand Seal will enter what I'm going to call her Rage mode, as indicated by this glowing red effect. Before I continue, I just want to tell you right now that waiting these 5 seconds isn't the only way to enter this rage mode. In fact, it's actually the worst way to do so, but I'll get to those other ways to enter it later. While Patricia is in this rage mode, both of Riju's dash attacks are going to be enhanced to an extreme degree, with her regular dash attack affecting a larger area and on the second attack ending with a lightning slam, and her strong dash attack having a whirlwind increasing its area of effect. On top of these, the damage of both of her dash attacks are upgraded considerably. Riju's best playstyle involves heavily upgrading her dash attack damage and exploiting the momentum that these attacks give you. In order to get why this is good, requires first understanding why being constantly in motion when you want to attack is actually a very good thing. I often hear it said that Riju is terrible at fighting bosses, and from the perspective of trying to play her like any other character and facing your foes straight on in a fight, I would probably have to agree with this. However, this is really not how you should be using her in these instances. By utilizing the extra damage from your dash attacks, you're able to use extremely effective hit and run tactics, and as long as you don't get too greedy with your assault, there's really almost nothing that most bosses can do about it. Some of the game's fiercest villains, the Lionels, use a lot of area-damaging charges and blasts that test other characters' ability to retreat or react quickly. But when your primary method of moving and attacking both come from dashes, you can simply sail strafe around them and go in for damage whenever they have pauses after their big attacks. The idea of a dash attack specialist is actually pretty new for a Warriors game, and though I wish I could say that once you start optimizing her for this kind of playstyle, everything is just going to fall into place, unfortunately there is a bit of a control and input problem with both of these moves that I have to mention. First off, Riju's regular dash attack string is actually affected by whether you're locked on or not. When you're not locked on, Riju will do her normal double dash string, the one where she is flung into the air by the second attack. But when you are locked on, for whatever reason, she is only able to do the first of these hits, which will then be followed by the rest of her regular attack string. I'm not sure or not if this was intentional. It might have been done due to her second dash attack's movement being judged as too erratic when the camera is locked on, or on the other hand, it might just be a bug or an unmentioned feature. Either way, I do think it's unfortunate. Part of Riju's final playstyle from her seals involves enhancing her ground smashes, and missing out on her second regular dash attack in these instances just takes away from her total damage output. When it comes to her strong dash attack, there unfortunately seems to be a camera issue. This is kind of hard to explain just by looking at footage, but rather than the camera continuing to travel forward with the player, it seems to stop briefly when Riju is no longer further away from it, about in the middle of her spin, and instead waits for her to get back to her original position before going back to where it should be. This effect is most noticeable when you're locked on, and sometimes if you're trying to do a quick pass on the enemy, the camera will almost lose you. On top of this, due to Riju's spinning movement, it can be very hard to tell where you actually are, and so I recommend trying to look where Patricia is when you're trying to direct her with any sharp movements. There is also one more thing to note about this strong dash attack, and it's not really an issue with the attack itself, but actually a helpful detail. When you're locked on, Riju will auto-aim her attack at your targeted enemy. This means that you can just dash up to your enemy and start mashing X, which will cause her to continuously spin attack your foe, never missing or blowing right past them. This is probably going to be my most top-heavy guide of any character in this game, because while there is a ton to say about Riju's dashes, there is far less so for her other actions. For example, Riju's aerial attacks are nothing really that special, just the typical 3 regular attacks and a strong attack finisher. A lot of Riju's attacks throw her into the air, during which you can transition to a glide by hitting B in the middle of them, but in most cases it's better to just get back onto the ground so that she can get back to doing what she does best. Her Sheikah Slate abilities are similarly straightforward. Starting with Stasis, Riju halts the foes in front of her, and if left alone, will start doing a canned attack where she spins on Patricia before doing a Thunderstrike. Just like with almost every other character that uses an auto attack with this rune, it's far better to dodge cancel out of this animation and do just about anything else. Riju's Cryonis is very easy to use, as she will simply bring up a block of ice from the ground in front of her. Once it's there, you can press X to start having Patricia pull it along, and then use X again to send it off like a projectile, one of Riju's only ranged attacks. When it comes to her Magnesis, Riju will spin a sword around until it's struck by lightning, or simply grab any Magnesis weak attack that your enemy throws at you. Last up, for her remote bomb rune, she will toss the bomb before stomping on it with her shield, which causes it to explode and throw her very high into the air, from which you can either ride the wind or start doing her aerial attacks. Unfortunately, in some cases, the time it takes for Riju to throw out her bomb and for it to explode can result in missing the bomb timing window for some enemies. This means it's important to remember that whenever you're playing as Riju, if an enemy is using an attack that you need to bomb, it's best to not wait. Next up, let's move over to her strong attacks. For Riju's first strong attack, she will have Patricia jump out and start moving forward, after which, if you're moving the control stick, you can immediately start dashing in her rage mode. This is one of the previously mentioned far better ways of entering rage mode, and learning to use this attack to start dashing rather than dodging or just moving forward is one of the keys to start getting better at Riju's playstyle right away. For Riju's second strong attack, she will summon 2 Gerudo warriors to attack in tandem together to your front. While this is a quick little focused attack, one extra benefit of it is that the soldiers will attack independently of Riju, meaning that you can use it and immediately start doing something else. As long as you hit the button, this attack is going to happen with no chance of it being interrupted. Next up, Riju's third strong attack will have her flung upwards by Patricia before landing hard on the ground with her shield. This is another bit of focused damage, and if you want, you can also press B in the air to start gliding in the middle of it. For her fourth strong attack, Patricia will take Riju on a ride as lightning starts striking to both sides. During this channeled attack, you can continuously hit X to elongate it, as well as move to the left or right. While it moves a little bit too fast to focus it on one enemy, you can at least do your best to go in a loose circle around your foe. But to be honest, that's really not what this attack is best for. Instead, of course, it's meant to be completely clearing out crowds in a forward area. For Riju's fifth strong attack, she will spin Patricia around before flinging her into a downwards attack that creates a spinning tornado. This attack is very fast and is a great source of damage, best used when you need to focus down damage on a single enemy, especially when their weak points are out. For Riju's sixth and final strong attack, she will summon 4 other Gerudo warriors complete with their own sand seals, who begin sand surfing in front of you before disappearing. This is a nice little area attack, but far from her best option for clearing an area or doing damage. However, just like her second strong attack, it is yet another option that will definitely do damage while you can be off doing something else. One more thing to mention before moving on is the fact that many of Riju's strong attacks will have an additional lightning effect. While this can't create the special elemental weakness bar, any lightning hitting sitting water will create a larger blast that will do damage to more foes. Next up, let's move over to her unique action. Riju's unique action is definitely more of a utility function than it is an active part of her fighting style. When used, Patricia will go on a rampage, dragging Riju along with her as she moves forward at an extreme speed. Piloting this into enemies causes them to be carried along with you while they also take damage, something that works to gather KOs on weak enemies, which can also help for the purposes of grinding certificates or gathering materials. On top of this, given that you will be doing constant damage just as you're moving from place to place, this also plays into a hitherto unmentioned part of Riju's playstyle, which is how doing just about anything with her will constantly be building up your special attack charge, meaning that she can actually use her special attack a lot more freely than the rest of the cast. An additional feature of using Patricia's Rampage is that this is the third way for Riju to enter into the Rage Dash mode fast. And although this is better than waiting the 5 seconds from a normal dash, it is less useful than just hitting X unless you need to be moving on to the next group of foes anyway. Another thing to mention is that you can also use this unique action while in the middle of the air, something that will cause Patricia to dash diagonally downward before landing already into her Rampage mode. Having this Rampage option alone makes Riju a great character to bring into certain side activities. For example, she was an auto-include for me when I was collecting all of the Korok seeds in the game, as well as the hidden treasure chests. Riju can save you a lot of time when you're going back to low-level missions, simply due to the fact of how fast you can move right through them and their low-level enemies. Before I move on, even though this isn't exactly related to her unique action, I do have to note that one unique thing about Riju is that she blocks using her shield, not just her body. This means that she is one of the 3 characters, alongside One-Hand Sword Link and Urbosa, that can press Y while blocking in order to reflect back Guardian laser blasts. In fact, once you become comfortable with using Riju's dashing strong attack as your main source of damage, she can become one of the best Guardian killers in the entire cast. Next up, let's look at her weapon choices and build recommendations. Riju has 3 possible weapons, and going in order from weakest to strongest, we have her Gerudo Bridle, Starlight Bridle, and Bridle of the Seven. I'll be putting a quick chart up showing her hidden level 25 and level 30 seals for all of these, but when it comes to her weapon build recommendation, I will be focusing on the Bridle of the Seven. Given everything that we know about Riju, it shouldn't come as a surprise that you're going to want to really focus on dash attack damage for her seals. These seals in particular, compared to other attack seals, actually add a considerable percent of damage. And though they're really not worth it on any other character, Riju is definitely the exception. Because you get no attack or percent bonus after the 4th same shape seal, almost any square seal can go along with her hidden level 30 seal. Personally, I would probably recommend special attack charge rate the most, as the other options don't really work in tandem with her area dash-focused playstyle. Well, with that covered, we're pretty much at the end. Let's put it all together and see how Riju stacks up. It really is no wonder that shortly after this game's release, Riju was one of the most mystifying warriors to many players. Although she seems to be the successor to other mounted fighters in Warriors games of the past, in truth, she's totally her own thing. Using Riju effectively means accepting her dash-heavy playstyle, and trying to force her to play like any other standard fighter, for example, just throwing her headlong into fights or trying to build up to her strong attacks and get perfect dodge times in there, is kind of missing the point entirely. While she isn't as adaptable as many others on this cast, with the right seals on her weapons and the right seal to ride, Riju can quickly start to impress. So, what are your thoughts on Riju? I know that she can be tough to utilize for both beginners and veterans, so I'm curious to hear from anyone who was having a tough time with her before, and then seeing how that might change after using some of the tips in this video. Also, if there was anything big about Riju that I missed, be sure to let me know in the comments below, as I will be adding a pinned comment to this video with any useful tips that I may have forgotten about. Thank you so much for watching, everybody, and I'll see you next time. Special thanks goes out to my top patrons DW7 Still Rules, Henry Gutierrez, Peeve Delatius, Radiant Archiver, Ryan Poe, and True Tactician, as well as to all of my other patrons. Thank you all very much.